We are all this guy. Welcome aboard, everybody. New York Jets fans, New York Giant fans. We're back here in the Sports Talk Nation. Michael Cohen here with you. Let's talk about Week 1, and it was just around the NFL itself. It was, of course, a heck of a start to the 2022 season from that standpoint, at least from the NFL. But if in New York, in the New York tri-state area, it was the tale of two different teams, seemingly going in two opposite directions. And you have the Giants, of course, coming off of their big win against the Tennessee Titans. We'll get into more on that in a minute. And then, of course, the New York Jets coming off of a disappointing showing. Very disappointing showing against the Baltimore Ravens, where they lose 24-9. But let me ask you, a lot of these fans out there, and a lot of the fans who have been wringing their hands over the last 24 hours since that game, should we really be surprised? Should we really be surprised that they lost as badly as they did against the Baltimore Ravens, a team that is a playoff contender, a team that a lot of people think could win the AFC North and contend for a deep postseason run? Should we really be surprised that the New York Jets, who are, basically in round two of another rebuild, should we really be surprised? Not really. But it is still disappointing nonetheless, because this was a team that came into the year with a lot of discussion about all the great weapons, the infusion of talent that we have heard about and talked about throughout the offseason this year. The talk about the offensive line being improved. Talk about, of course, all the rookies and what they contribute to this team. And of course, they showed flashes yesterday, but not enough, obviously, when you lose 24-9. And all that came crashing back down to earth yesterday. Now, the offensive line and Joe Flacco, in my mind, were really the biggest culprits in this game. And another culprit we can go into, obviously, the coaching. I thought some of the play calling by Mike LaFleur up in the booth was kind of vanilla. For that matter, really wasn't all inspiring. But this was about the offensive line. The Jets got beat up front by the Baltimore Ravens. Joe Flacco was under siege the entire game. It's a surprise that he was only sacked 3 times, because it felt like he was sacked 10 times the way just watching this game. He was under duress the entire afternoon. He had really no time to set his feet and throw it all. And it was a terrible performance from Joe. This is what's ironic about the whole thing. You move George Font, and again, this is where the injuries play a big role. The injuries to Mekhi Becton and Dwayne Brown play a very big role. But you move George Font back to left tackle, where he had been getting ready to play that position really the entire offseason, assuming that Mekhi Becton would have been healthy, playing where he would have been at right tackle. And he was terrible, was George Font at left tackle. The guys are just running right by him. Even Laken Tomlinson, the big addition that the Jets made, the former free agent of the San Francisco 49ers, he had a rough day in his first official game as a New York Jet at left guard. So it was a really rough afternoon up front for the Jets. Ironically, they still found some lanes to run the football decently. Not great. Nothing that stands out. They had some moments. You had a couple of nice runs by Michael Carter. You saw one nice run by Breece Hall. But that was it. There really wasn't much to write about. And I think what it really has to astound a lot of Jet fans, and has astounded a lot of Jet fans, is the fact that they couldn't get many of their playmakers really heavily involved. Where were the tight ends? We heard all season about, Tyler Conklin and C.J. Uzomah. Uzomah never caught a pass. Conklin only ended up catching 4 passes in the game, one of which was for a touchdown in garbage time. But those guys were really non-existent throughout the course of the game. You didn't see a lot of Garrett Wilson. Elijah Moore had a quiet day as well. It was a bad showing by this Jets offense. Now, we could sit here and make excuses all you want. And I know there's going to be people saying, well, again, the offensive line was battered up. You don't have Zach Wilson. A lot of people are going to hype on that. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if the result would have been any different with Zach Wilson there under center. Maybe he would have been able to move around a little bit. Maybe he shows some of that mobility to get away from some of those pressures by the Ravens. But I don't know if necessarily the results would have been the same. He probably would have been rushed into the point of throwing turnovers, for that matter. So it was just an ugly game. Defensively, the Jets held their own for the first half of the game, and then it all imploded after that. On a pass interference call on LaMarcus Joyner, that really set up the Ravens nicely, and Lamar Jackson had a huge afternoon. 3 big touchdown passes. The 55-yarder was really the nail in the coffin on the Jets. They didn't do much in this game. It was a flat-out slaughter by the Baltimore Ravens. It wasn't even close. And that's what's got to bother you from the Jet fan standpoint, because this was a team that was supposed to be getting better. This was a team that was supposed to be competitive. This was a team that was supposed to, even if they lose, was going to keep games close, and we didn't see that at all in this game. And it's been a weird number of weeks for Robert Saleh and his coaching staff, especially around the injuries, the handling of those injuries. One day we're told, for example, Mekhi Becton, not a serious injury. Next day he's out for the season. Zach Wilson, 2 to 4 week injury. Looks like he could be coming back. Then he's out for 3 more weeks. A lot of inconsistencies from that standpoint. And somebody pointed out on Twitter, so it was Brian Costello, pointing out on Twitter Joe Douglas's draft history. Now, Joe Douglas has gotten a lot of praise. And you're starting to see now, some people are starting to look at Joe Douglas saying, you've been here for 3.5 years. You've been here for 3.5 years. And the product last night, or yesterday, Sunday afternoon, looked exactly the same as we've seen the last several years. So now you're starting to see the vultures swarm a little bit around Douglas. You're starting to see the vultures swarm a little bit around Robert Saleh as well, because people want to see the team compete. They want to see competency. They want to see a team kind of like what we saw with the Giants yesterday, where you have an opportunity to win the game. Even if you're losing, your players never give up, and you put your team in positions to win. And we didn't see that yesterday. It was just kind of like the same old stuff all over again we've seen the last several years. And at some point, you can't keep saying, well, we're still rebuilding. We're still, going at it. We're still, grinding it out and trying to figure it out. At some point, you can't say that too much anymore. And Robert Saleh today in his press conference, his Monday press conference, saying that he's keeping tabs of those who have mocked the Jets or are making fun of the Jets during this time, and that they're going to prove those critics wrong. I hope they do prove them wrong. I really do. I really, really do. Now, for me, as far as the quarterback is concerned, I would absolutely change it up. At this point, what you got to lose, right? You're probably not going to go to the playoffs anyway. Why not just roll with Mike White in Week 2 against the Cleveland Browns and see what happens? Because it can't be any worse than what you had with Joe Flacco, who just continues to struggle with the New York Jets. In fact, Flacco has now started 5 games. Think about this. Joe Flacco has started 5 games with the Jets. Okay? 5 of them. And they have lost all 5 of the games he has started. That's going back to 2020. They have lost all those games that he has started. Okay? I understand he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. I know he's been around a long time, but he's a statue back there, and he didn't look good and couldn't move this offense. Maybe Mike White, younger legs, someone who we've seen last year, can light up this offense a little bit. Maybe it's time for the Jets to go ahead and make that move. Now, Saleh's saying that he's likely going to lean towards Flacco again against the Cleveland Browns. That might be a mistake. And you look at that schedule now. Cleveland was impressive yesterday in a win against Carolina. Pittsburgh impressive yesterday against Cincinnati. You got Cincinnati in there as well. The Dolphins look good against the New England Patriots. And then, of course, you got the Packers, the Broncos, the Patriots twice, and the Bills. When are the Jets going to win a game? That's my question right now. When are the Jets going to win a football game? And if you were a Jets fan, you have to start asking that question right now. It's a legit question to ask. So you can understand why there is some sense of panic, some sense of concern at the very least about the direction of the football team. And of course, yes, we do understand there are extenuating circumstances as far as injuries are concerned. And I definitely, again, I hope they find a way to turn this thing around starting on Sunday against the Cleveland Browns. Now, as for the Giants, that's what a rebuild is supposed to look like. We talk about the Jets, who have been really struggling right now, trying to get going with their rebuild. The Giants, much like the Jets, have been in this long funk for like 7 years, right? Giants haven't had a playoff season since 2016. They hadn't had an opening day win until yesterday, before that, since 2016. And they came out there, and they looked like the Giants of old. Now, they fell behind 13-0. You had Daniel Jones at one point throw a pick in the end zone with the team down 20-13 in a crucial spot in the fourth quarter. But this was all about Brian Daboll. 2 things. It was about Brian Daboll and it was about Saquon Barkley. That's what it was about. Saquon, of course, was phenomenal. 194 total purpose yards, 164 yards on the ground, looking like the same guy he was back in 2018 because now he's finally healthy. He's gone past the knee injuries and leg injuries that have destroyed the last couple of years for him and derailed it for him. He hasn't been healthy in a long time. He is healthy now and looks like the guy who was considered one of the top rookie running backs in the sport back in 2018. He was phenomenal. 68-yard run, really got the Giants going. Then he scores the touchdown, and then later at the end of the game scores the 2-point conversion. He was fantastic. Daboll, you know what? After years for the Giants was going through guys like Joe Judge and Pat Shurmur, and for him Ben McAdoo, and even to a slight extent Steve Spagnuolo in an interim role, the Giants have not had a head coach who is going to go out there and say, I trust my guys, since obviously Tom Coughlin. And that felt like at the end of that game with the Giants going for a 2-point conversion, and then you have Daboll explaining later on, saying, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to go for stuff like that. We're trying to build a brand here. We're trying to build a culture here. We're going to be aggressive and trying to win football games. Man, was that right out of the Bill Parcells, Tom Coughlin playbook or what? It really was. It was. That's what it felt like. That's what I felt like hearing when I heard Daboll say that yesterday in his post-game conference. And not to mention, Daboll yelling at Daniel Jones. Kind of reminded me of the days when Bill Parcells used to yell at Phil Simms on the sideline after that interception. So the Giants may have something going here. They may have finally have a head coach who's going to hold this team accountable and is going to trust his guys. I mean, to go for a 2-point conversion when you're down 1 point on the road, you're a heavy underdog. A lot of coaches would just go for the tie in that situation. No, go for the win. You got nothing to lose. You get it? Great. You don't get it? Too bad. Oh well. It was a worthy attempt anyway because you weren't expected to win anyway. It was a bold move. I love this. I like the strategy and I like the aggression from that standpoint from the Giants. So all of a sudden, the Giants, who weren't expected to do a whole heck of a lot this year, may still end up not doing a whole heck of a lot this year. All of a sudden, they have a little bit of confidence going for them. They take on a Panthers team at home that they should be competitive against. And then they take on a Dallas Cowboys team at home again after that. That is reeling right now with Dak Prescott now out 6 to 8 weeks with another injury, this time a hand injury. Whoa, all of a sudden the Giants are starting to think to themselves, hey, could we make something out of this season that was supposed to be about nothing? It could happen. It really could. Stranger things do happen in the NFL, as we all know. So I'm going to try to I'm going to do these videos every week, whether it be right away on a Sunday, most likely on Mondays. I'm going to try to get these out. And over the course of the year, I will have other people come in. We're going to, go back and forth on this kind of stuff throughout the course of the season, kind of rotate people in and out, because it's always fun to talk about what happened the day before, in the National Football League, especially in our tri-state area with all these teams that we have here. So, you know what to do, folks. Like and subscribe, and of course, follow us here on the Sports Talk Nation. We got a lot of baseball stuff we got to get to as well. The Mets finally starting to turn things around a little bit after that slump. Back to a 1.5 lead over Atlanta. Please, let's keep going. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Sports Talk Nation.